The New Testament of our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ, translated out of the Greek, being the version set forth AD 1611, compared with the most ancient, authorized and revised AD 1881. The New Testament in the original Greek, the text revised by Brooke, Westcott, double D, canon of Peterborough and Regius Professor of Divinity, Cambridge, and Fenton, John Anthony Hort, double D, Halcyon Professor of Divinity, Cambridge. American edition with an introduction by Philip Schaff, double D, LL.D, Professor in the Union Theological Seminary, New York, President of the American Bible Revision Committee. This is a translation around about 1881. So we've given you, published in 1882, we've given you a the reviews from probably a practicing Jehovah Witness and an anti-Jehovah Witness, right? Somebody else with an opinion, right? So we're going to have a look here. As we mentioned, the Aramaic translator Victor N. Alexander, he actually did a top 10 list of the different denominations, and he put the Jehovah Witness in their New World Translation at the very top, and the Latter-day Saints at the very bottom. Why did he put the Jehovah Witness NWT at the top? Because when he examined it and compared it with the original Aramaic, Galilean Aramaic, he said it was very close to the ancient Galilean Aramaic in English. Okay. And he did mention, I think through correspondence or on his website when it was up, the AramaicScriptures.com, that it was very close to the Koine Greek. If you translated the original Koine Greek into English and you compared it with the Galilean Aramaic, it would be very, very close, hence it being called akin. Okay. So yeah, he put them at number one, but he did have some, made some remarks, I think it's through email to me, that he thought were kind of wacky, like they believe that they are the 144,000 in Revelations at that time, and believed that they were the only ones getting into heaven, no one else, just them, and yet there's probably millions of Jehovah's Witnesses. And also that Christ was Archangel Michael and he was created, and a couple of other ideas, wacky ideas. That's coming from the very top, isn't it? From the Watchtower Society or something like that. And then the on the LDS or the Mormon movement, they had some extremely wacky ideas which he didn't think much of. Okay, you can get hold of him to verify that. If you can go and have a look at his video, put in YouTube the Aramaic Scriptures, and it should come up with a video of an older man, white hair, reading from what looks like a Bible format, a Bible, speaking funny language. Look down in the comments, find his email address, and he may verify it for you if he gets back to you. Okay. Okay, so this is the New Testament in the original Greek by these two people here, Westcott and Hort, American edition. The introduction. So we're going to go ahead and look at it. Here's the publisher's note. Here's Erasmus saying something in Latin in that era. No idea what it says. Don't speak Latin. You can have a guess, I suppose, but yeah, probably totally inaccurate. So it's best that someone who speaks Latin can translate it, put it in the comments down below, and he was so grateful. What did he say? What is he saying? Yeah, publisher's note: the extraordinary interest with which the revised English version of the New Testament has been received, and the universal desire to form a just and intelligent estimate of its value have prompted the publication of several treatises of a critical or of an explanatory character, dealing with the work of the revisers, its object, its instruments, its methods, and its results. While such books may be eminently suited to the necessities of the general reader, the purpose of the student and the scholar can be efficiently served only by the text of the New Testament in the original Greek, collated in accordance with recognized principles of criticism by means of trained taste and acknowledged ability from the best sources accessible at the present time in the era. Such a work is opportunely furnished in the beautiful text of Westcott and Hort. In this edition of the New Testament, which has been prepared by the publishers at the suggestion of several eminent scholars, these are top scholars, recognised, the revised English version has been arranged so as to correspond as nearly as possible page by page with Westcott and Hort's Greek text, the two works being printed on opposite pages. This arrangement has rendered necessary in the English portion a partial departure from the order of books adopted by the revisers, as well as the transposition of a certain passage in the Gospel. Of St. John, chapter 7, 53 to 58, verse 11. To the end of that Gospel. In other respects, the English portion of the work is identical with the revised version as issued by the publishers, except that a translation has been added of the alternative ending of the Gospel of St. Mark, while the reviser's preface has been omitted with a view to keep the size of the book within convenient limits. The Greek has been printed from plates containing the final corrections of the editors, and English from the type used in the breviary editions of the revised version issued by the publishers. It is hoped that by facilitating comparisons between the latest English translation and the purest and most recent Greek text of the New Testament, this edition will win for itself a useful and conspicuous place among the practical apparatus of the student and the biblical scholar. Harper and Brothers. Introduction to the American edition by Philip Schaff. Merits of the edition, and there's some information there. The 17th day of May 1881 marks an epoch in the history of the New Testament. It is the birthday both of the purest English tradition and of the purest Greek text of that little book, which contains the inspired message of God's wisdom and love to mankind, and which forms the highest standard of Christian faith and duty. The coincidence is remarkable. The original and the translation were matured during the same long period by harmonious though independent cooperation. The editors of the Greek text were members of the English New Testament Company of Revisers. The English and American revisers had the confidential use of advanced proof sheets of this edition of the Greek text as they proceeded, and the translations perhaps more nearly conformed to it than to any other printed edition from Erasmus and Beza down to Tischendorf and Tregelles. The Textus Receptus, that's Latin for the received text, so called, was announced to the world by the Leyden publishers in 1633 with the bold declaration Textum ergo habis ab omnibus receptum. A venture to introduce the Greek Testament of Westcott and Hort with the modest assertions. It's got some more Latin there. It is based exclusively on documentary evidence and the most careful comparison of all the ancient sources of the text as they have been collected and made available by the indefatigable diligence of former editors, especially of Lachmann, Tischendorf and Tregelles. It embodies the results of the combined labours of more than a quarter of a century. It will, of course, not supersede the large edition which contained the whole critical apparatus, but it will take its rank as once among the best standard editions of the Greek Testament. The Saturday Review of London for May 21, 1881, in the notice of the revised version of the New Testament, incidentally mentions this Greek edition with the remark, the Clarendon Press volume, Archdeacon Palmer Greek text, is beautifully printed, though this again is eclipsed by the exquisite edition of Dr. Westcott's and Dr. Hort's Greek text, issued by the Pitt Press on the same 17th May, a day to be much remembered by biblical critics. This last work formed exclusively on documentary evidence without reference to any printed text, has been long expected by scholars. It is probably the most important contribution to biblical learning in our generation. The revisers, it is understood, had the advantage of consulting it during the progress of their work. So these people are approved and recommending it. And this person says he became personally acquainted with the editors and their work 12 years ago at Harrow in 1869, and saw them afterwards repeatedly at Cambridge, London and Peterborough. He formed such a favourable opinion of the value of their labours that he engaged from them and their publisher, Mr. Macmillan, duplicate plates for an American edition, which is now published by the Messages. Let me sure what that word is. Harper and Brothers. A letter of the Messrs. Harper in which they accepted my propositions dated May 17, 1881, on the same day of the same month on which the book was published 10 years afterwards in London. But as Westcott and Hort did not contemplate a critical apparatus below the text, I made it subsequently in agreement with my friend Professor Tischendorf for the preparation of an American edition containing his own latest text with a very brief digest of his critical apparatus, somewhat similar to his Dito Critica Minor, only more condensed, and etc. etc. Okay. He's giving the explanation of it. This opinion ripened into conviction by constant use since 1870 of proof sheets of this text, my edition of Lang's commentary on John, etc. etc. Doctors Westcott and Hort are ranked in England among the best Greek and biblical scholars of the age. Dr. Hort, educated at Rugby School and Trinity College, Cambridge, is Holskin Professor, etc. etc. He is probably more familiar with the textual history of the Greek text than any other man living, so they've given him credit. He exerted great influence in the revision company on all matters of reading. His 2 dissertations on whatever that is in Greek, and on the Constantinopolitan Creed, 1876, evince a rare degree of Patrick's learning and critical acumen. Okay, so again they're praising him, right, for his work. They're honouring him, giving him the credits, much deserved, possibly. Dr. Westcott, born 1825, educated at Trinity College, blah blah blah. More history there. Okay, and what's that? References to different resources. Literature. The chief authorities for the topics discussed in this introduction are the following works. It's all there. Just going over it briefly. So the evidence is shown. To get a general idea of what people involved with those two in this translation said. Now for the sources of the text of the New Testament. The original autographs, or autographer, I'm sure it's got that down the bottom there. Yeah. Autographer in the Greek, whatever that is. Whatever that means. Sources of the text of the New Testament. The original autographs of the apostolic writings are lost beyond all reasonable hope of discovery, and not even mentioned by the post-apostolic authors as being extant anywhere, or as have been seen by them. They perished probably before the close of the 1st century with the brittle paper then in ordinary use. The Egyptian papyrus, like all other ancient writings, with the exception of a few that were accidentally preserved in Egyptian tombs and mummies, or under the lava was Vesuvius at Herculaneum and Pompeii. Okay, so that's their opinion, but as we will show and provide sources to, the supposed original hidden and preserved manuscripts in the original Galilean Aramaic, etc., hidden and preserved by the Apostolic Church of the East for over 2,000 years. So it's just that they didn't know, possibly, at that time, because, was hidden and preserved and wasn't released, etc., etc., until somebody bought or was given a copy of the original manuscripts by E. Victor Alexander and translated it into English, and we have it today. Okay, some information about the Bible. In the absence of the autographs, we must depend upon copies or secondary sources, but these are fortunately far more numerous and trustworthy for the Greek Testament than for any ancient classic. In the variety and fullness of the evidence on which it rests, the text of the New Testament stands absolutely and unapproachably alone among ancient prose writings. W. and H. of Westcott Hort, page 561. The sources of the text are threefold: manuscript copies, ancient versions, and patristic quotations. Okay, so I think he's talking about the Greek manuscripts, copies, ancient versions, and Greek manuscripts. The manuscripts, or codices, footnote here, codex or cavadex means originally the trunk of a tree, stock, stem, then a block of wood, split or sawn into planks, leaves or tablets, and fastened together, hence a book, as the ancients wrote on tablets of wood smeared with wax, the leaves being laid one upon another. The Hebrew manuscripts are in rolls. And the manuscripts with codices are the direct and most important sources. They number now over 1,700, counting all classes. This is the Greek, and new ones may yet be discovered. Footnote there. The total number of manuscripts recorded by Dr. Scrivener, including lectionaries, is 158 uncials or uncials and 1605 cursives, page 269, compare page 10. But its list is incomplete. It gives an index of about 1277 separate Greek manuscripts of the New Testament, arranged according to the countries where they are now deposited, paragraph 571 to 584. He assigns 3 to Denmark, 293 to England, 238 to France, 96 to Germany, 6 to Holland, 3 to Ireland, 368 to Italy, 81 to Russia, 8 to Scotland, 23 to Spain, 1 to Sweden, 14 to Switzerland, 104 to Turkey, 39 unknown. See Edward C. Mitchell, Critical Handbook Tables 8, 9 and 10. They differ in age, extent and value. They were written between the 4th and 16th centuries. The oldest date from the middle of the 4th century, and rest of course on still older copies. Few manuscripts of Greek or Roman classics are older than the 9th or 10th century. The Medicaid Emis manuscript of Virgil is of the 4th, etc., etc. Give some more information there on the manuscripts. Okay, you can read those in your own time. Read all that information. It's quite a lot of information. Trying to get through all of this. What does this say? It's Codex X. Codex X, or whatever that is in the Greek, is the most complete, and also, with the exception perhaps of the Vatican manuscript, the oldest, or all events, one of the 2 oldest manuscripts, although it was last found and used. Düsseldorf, let's say something in Latin, etc. Information here. Okay, here's the Greek here. Specimen of the Codex Sinaiticus, containing 1 Timothy 3:16. Goes on about the different codexes, I guess. Codex Alexandrinus of the 5th century. Codex Vaticanus of the middle of the 4th century. So forth. Trying to skip all this. Okay, as we see, probably provide the link and you can read it in your own time. Okay, because there's a lot of information there. We don't want to spend hours and hours on it. Okay, trying to get to. Trying to skip all this. I think it's quite extensive. Try to jump ahead. On it. It's a huge introduction. It could take months or days or months or weeks or years to read all of that. Okay, so here's an example of St. Luke, the book of Luke. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the magic of skipping, jumping, and we are going to have a look at one book in particular and then compare it with the supposed original Galilean Aramaic translated into English. If this is the from the original Koine Greek, it should be pretty much the same if attested by Aramaic translator from Bet-Narain, 15 Alexander, that if you translated the Koine, it's akin to the ancient Aramaic, so it should be pretty similar. Okay. Hopefully in the English. Okay, it states here the revelation of Saint John the Divine, just particular things we're going to look at and compare with the Aramaic, Galilean Aramaic. The revelation of Jesus Christ which God gave to him to show unto his servants even things, etc., etc. John to the 7 churches. And there it is in Greek, Koine Greek. So what we're trying to do, look for specific verses to see if what it says in the Galilean and Aramaic and in this Greek are the same. So where are we? Let's see if we can jump again to okay, that's the Aramaic.